CSA stands for Compliance, Safety, and Accountability. It is the safety, compliance, and enforcement program of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration that holds motor carriers and drivers accountable for their role in safety. CSA affects motor carriers, including owner-operators, by identifying those with safety problems to prioritize them for interventions such as warning letters and investigations. CSA affects drivers because their safety performance and compliance impact their safety records and, while working for a carrier, will impact their carrier's safety record. Safety Measurement System. Your company's safety data appears online in the FMCSA's Safety Measurement System. The FMCSA updates the SMS once a month with data from roadside inspections, including driver and vehicle violations, crash reports from the last 2 years, and investigation results. The SMS considers the number of safety violations and inspections, the severity of safety violations or crashes, when the safety violation occurred, with recent events weighted more heavily, the number of trucks a carrier operates and the number of vehicle miles traveled, acute and critical violations found during investigations. Basics. The CSA process consists of several steps. In the first step, CSA takes each carrier's safety events and places them into groups called behavioral analysis and safety improvement categories. Then, the events are assigned a numerical weight based on severity and age. Unsafe driving. The unsafe driving basic refers to the operation of commercial motor vehicles by drivers in a dangerous or careless manner. Some examples of roadside safety violations that may cause a motor carrier to rank poorly in this basic include using a handheld device, speeding, reckless driving, improper lane changes, and inattention. Crash indicator. At present, the crash indicator basic can only be seen by enforcement personnel or by a motor carrier that is logged into its own safety profile. It is not publicly available. FMCSA defines the crash indicator basic as histories or patterns of high crash involvement, such as frequency and severity. It is based on information from state-reported crashes that meet reportable crash standards. The crash indicator basic uses crash history that is not specifically a behavior, but instead the consequence of a behavior or set of behaviors. The consequence of a behavior can point to a problem that needs attention. State-reported crashes raise the percentile rank of the crash indicator, which indicates lower safety compliance. The FMCSA's safety measurement system does not currently factor in crash accountability. The agency is researching how this may be incorporated in the future. HOS compliance. The HOS compliance basic includes violations of the regulations pertaining to records of duty status as they relate to HOS requirements and the management of commercial motor vehicle driver fatigue. Some examples of roadside safety violations include a driver operating more hours than allowed under HOS regulations and falsification of records of duty status. Vehicle maintenance. The Vehicle Maintenance Basic addresses the requirements to properly maintain a commercial motor vehicle and to prevent shifting loads, spilled or dropped cargo, and overloading of a commercial motor vehicle. Proper maintenance includes, among other things, ensuring that lamps and reflectors are working and tires are not worn. Some examples of roadside safety violations include operating an out-of-service vehicle or operating a vehicle with inoperative brakes, lights, or other mechanical defects, and failure to make required repairs. Improper load securement and cargo retention violations are also examples of violations included in this basic. Controlled substances, alcohol. The Controlled Substances and Alcohol Basic deals with the operation of commercial motor vehicles by drivers who are impaired due to alcohol, illegal drugs, and the misuse of prescription or over-the-counter medications. Some examples of roadside violations include a driver's failing an alcohol test, which indicate an alcohol level of 0.02 or greater, and operating under the influence of illegal drugs. Hazardous Materials Compliance. The Hazardous Materials Compliance Basic specifically addresses the requirements to safely transport hazardous materials on commercial motor vehicles. Some examples of roadside safety violations include failing to mark, label, or placard in accordance with the regulations and not properly securing a package containing hazardous materials. This basic also includes violations pertaining to cargo tank specification testing, loading, unloading, attendance, and leakage. Driver Fitness. The Driver Fitness Basic addresses the operation of commercial motor vehicles by drivers who are unfit to operate a commercial motor vehicle due to lack of training, experience, or medical qualifications. Some examples of roadside safety violations include failure to have a valid and appropriate commercial driver's license and being medically unqualified to operate a commercial motor vehicle. Safety Management Cycle. The SMC is a tool used by the FMCSA to help identify and address motor carriers' safety and compliance issues. It can also use the SMC within their own businesses to determine which of the safety management processes that they need to improve by looking at the processes, management, and controls associated with each SMP. The SMC is used to systematically assess SMPs in 6 areas: policies and procedures, roles and responsibilities, qualification and hiring, training and communication, monitoring and tracking, and meaningful action. By periodically reviewing each process, there is an opportunity to identify and correct breakdowns in SMPs before safety and compliance issues are identified or crashes occur. The SMC can also be used after safety and compliance issues or crashes have taken place to assist in determining which SMPs need attention. Policies and Procedures defines the what and how of a motor carrier's operations. Policies establish the guidelines for how motor carriers and their employees behave in a given situation. Procedures explain how to accomplish policies. The other 5 SMPs focus on how to implement the policies and procedures. Roles and Responsibilities clearly defines what each employee should do to successfully implement the policies and procedures. Qualification and Hiring discusses recruiting and screening applicants to fulfill the roles and responsibilities for positions. Training and Communication outlines a motor carrier's communication of its policies, procedures, roles, and responsibilities so that everyone understands the expectations and has the adequate skills and knowledge to perform their assigned function. Monitoring and Tracking concentrates on the need to have a system in place to monitor and track employee performance that enables companies to be aware of their employees' safety performance and compliance with its policies and procedures and how they execute their roles and responsibilities. Monitoring represents the motor carrier looking at the performance of the operation, and tracking is assessing the data collected leading to meaningful action. Meaningful action gives motor carriers the tools to correct or improve employee behavior, including, for example, refresher training and positive reinforcement such as rewards or bonuses, in order to improve the motor carrier's overall safety performance. The SMC is used by the FMCSA during investigations. The SMC is also useful in helping motor carriers identify and take actions to improve their safety compliance. Below are the general steps a motor carrier should follow in applying the SMC to its operation. Step 1. Review the company's violations and crash history on the SMS for trends. Step 2. Assess each of the SMPs, starting with the policies and procedures, to determine which contains process breakdowns that contribute to crashes and/or violations. Each SMP highlights the kinds of safety management controls that are needed to ensure strong safety performance and where they may be breaking down. A company or a safety investigator uses the SMC to identify which processes are not working well and are contributing to the motor carrier's violations of the FMCSRs and/or crashes. Step 3. Assess why the breakdowns are occurring in that process and identify safety improvement practices to address these problems. Safety improvement practices are identified within each SMP, and motor carriers can implement them to begin improving their safety performance. Step 4. Select and prioritize safety improvement practices to address improving safety compliance, create an implementation plan appropriate for company size and available resources, implement the plan, and monitor and track progress and the effect on the company's basic percentile ranks over time. CSA Interventions. All violations during roadside inspections contribute points to the total score a motor carrier has in each basic. Some violations are more severe and thus contribute a larger number of points per violation. The points are aggregated and then compared to a peer group of carriers with similar numbers of inspections in determining whether or not the basic is above intervention threshold percentage. The thresholds are vehicle maintenance 80%, hazardous materials compliance 80%, crash indicator 65%, driver fitness 80%, controlled substances and alcohol 80%, hours of service compliance 65%, unsafe driving 65%. The CSA Interventions process evaluates why safety problems occur, recommends remedies, encourages corrective action, and when necessary, invokes strong penalties for carriers failing to comply. The CSA has a wide array of intervention tools to help motor carriers comply with safety regulations. There are 3 categories of intervention: early contact, investigation, and follow-on. Early contact. Warning letters. These letters notify motor carriers early on about their safety performance and compliance problems and the consequences of not improving, which may include either on-site or off-site investigations. Targeted roadside inspection. Conducted at a permanent or temporary roadside inspection location, these inspections are prompted by data that identify a carrier's specific safety problems. Investigation. Safety investigators conduct 3 types of investigations, which can take place at a carrier's place of business or remotely. During the investigation, safety investigators use FMCSA's safety management cycle to diagnose safety performance and compliance problems to identify actions a carrier can take to improve. Off-site investigation. A safety investigator requests copies of documents from a carrier and reviews these documents remotely to identify specific safety performance and compliance problems. On-site focused investigation. A safety inspector focuses on specific safety performance and compliance problems at the carrier's place of business and may interview employees and perform vehicle inspections. On-site comprehensive investigation. A safety investigator reviews the entire safety operation at a carrier's place of business and may interview employees and perform vehicle inspections. Follow-ons. Cooperative safety plan. A voluntary plan a carrier may implement with the help of safety investigators to address safety problems. This plan may be used alone or with a notice of violation, but it cannot replace a notice of claim. Notice of violation. A formal notice that violations are severe enough to warrant formal action but not civil penalties. To avoid further intervention from the FMCSA, the carrier must take corrective action and provide evidence of it or contest the violations. Notice of claim. a formal notice that violations are severe enough to warrant assessment and civil penalties. Operation out of service order, an order requiring the carrier to immediately cease all motor vehicle operations.